Next up, would like to bring up the Toy Box team and be able to do a kind of a panel here.
Yeah, so we're going to do a panel for about the next hour. We're going to bring members of our team up here. Remember that Allison is going to be taking questions via Twitter as well as the live stream on Twitch. So she'll be pulling questions if you use the hashtag Disney Infinity or hashtag Toy Box Summit. So I would like to bring the guys up now. Please come on, introducing Mr. Jeff Bunker. Actually, we should...
So let's go ahead and do an introduction, everybody.
Is there? All right. Mr. James Rowe. We're actually about to do an introduction.
Oh, are we? Okay,
yeah.
well, never mind then.
Sorry about that.
Am I clicking through this? Is that the... Okay.
Let's bring out the panelists. You guys are here. Next up. All right. Okay. So we thought this would be fun. This is a great opportunity, actually, to get...
Hold on real quick. So we've got Reed Hawker. Reed's on our environments team, so he does a lot of the stuff as far as creating the look of all the different Toy Box sets. We've got Chad, who's kind of maybe the spiritual leader, I think, of the Toy Box team. I think a lot of you guys have probably been able to interact with him a little bit online and in the community. And so Chad's the kind of the head architect of the Toy Box. And so he, in combination with Bob Lowe, are the two guys that are really, I think, providing a lot of the vision for where the Toy Box is going right now and what the feature set will be in that. Everybody knows Vignacchi, but Jeff Bunker is the art director for the entire Infinity project, and so we've been working together for a long time on a lot of different things. And Jeff is really, I think, a lot of the driving force behind the characters and the actual the figurines themselves that we've made. And then James is the lead programmer on the Toy Box, and so he's the tech guy that gets all this stuff done. So go ahead and hopefully ask some questions. So,
all right. Well, we took care of that first question, so now you guys will not have to introduce yourselves since John gave such an amazing recap. So first question for the panel. Steve B wants to know, tell us about the behind-the-scenes process that goes into the creation of a character or a game. How do you figure out what abilities that character will have and how it affects the game as a whole, especially in Toy Box mode? Anyone would like to jump into this one first? How do we go about figuring out exactly what the creation of each of our characters and what abilities those characters should have in game?
I'll take a step back.
All right, Jeff, let's start with you.
First of all, obviously we're Disney, so we try to pick the characters that are most representative of what, as we've already mentioned, what the community wants. We really want to listen to you and choose the characters that you want to be playing with. And then we have to look at the fact that we're interactive, and so we have to find the best way to make these characters fun to play with. And this was really challenging, or I should say this was a fun problem. That when we brought Marvel in, man, that's just easy. I mean, when you're doing Spider-Man or Iron Man or Hulk, the type of moves that you can imagine that they would do, that's just easy to think of. And then you think, okay, now we're going to bring Jasmine in and Donald Duck. How do you do something that makes them comparable to those characters? How do you make those characters fun? And I think that there was a lot of effort to make them like that they are an equivalent experience. I'm excited for the community to start experiencing these new characters because the skill trees that we've put in and the extra moves that these characters have, I think you're just going to really enjoy them.
Now, Jeff, you say that bringing the Marvel characters in was easy. But I know that was far from the case.
I would say easy on the design side, hard on the tech side.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about that? Like, what would we say is the most challenging Marvel character to integrate into 2.0? Which character do we feel was the one that was that needed the most TLC in order to get feeling perfectly right? James, you want to take a stab?
I'll take a stab. That's actually a really difficult question because one of our primary focuses is a lot of versatility. And so they bring very different challenges, each character you're doing. You have, the animations, you have the look, you want them to feel right together, but you also want them to be very different characters. So it's hard to pick out one mechanic and say that one was the hard one to do.
But if you're going to, I'd say character-wise, it's got to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because Spider-Man has both wall crawl as well as all of the kind of more of the pendulum physics that goes on the web swing. So in making him both feel like he has the right weight, but then also the right kind of power in that, and then the right amount of control for the character. So I would say the two modes were like flight. And
Flight.
Flight's really hard for, Iron Man and Nova, those things. But I would say that the getting Spider-Man nailed was actually really
About how long do you think we took to implement those flight mechanics? Because one of the big things from the first version of the game is, hey, it's fun how you can use Buzz Lightyear's jetpack, but we implemented it in terms of fixed-wing flight, as we were calling it.
Yeah.
So in terms of doing that full, I remember in an executive review you saying, 8-way directional flight. I believe was
That's
what you
not
said.
what I said.
Probably-
Sixth degree of freedom. Was
So,
so that's what I said.
you effectively made it sound sillier.
So we added a couple extra dimensions.
But like about how long? I mean, those were the two mechanics, right? It was obviously the wall crawling as well as the flight. About how long did it take? Web slinging as well as the flight. About how long did it take our character mechanics team to integrate those to a level of polish that they felt comfortable with?
I mean, I would say just we had the mechanics up and working within about 2 weeks. And then as we started to then hone and refine them and to try to go through, it probably took about another 9 months of that. I think if you just look at, like, say, Spider-Man's, all the different motions that he has, for all the different ways that he can swing and then release and then enter into another, web swing, I bet we did at least 10 iterations of those animations that we did just to try to really make them feel just right.
Yeah, and that's just talking in terms of the mechanics team. That's just the first domino that falls, because afterwards, now all the world artists have to accommodate those same moves,
Right.
the swing, wall crawls and the swinging and that type of thing. And so that totally changes the way that you're going to build those worlds, because you have to have a world that is receptive to that type of gameplay.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the Marvel characters. I'd like to go back actually to the Disney characters because I do think that this is interesting. In the Donald Duck trailer that we put out this week when we announced Donald, for example, the item that he throws constantly rotates between a few of those. You may want to talk a little bit about some of the inspiration for his moveset as well as some of the things that he does inside of the game. Jeff, you want to start?
The inspiration comes from Donald himself. We go back to the old films, the old shorts, and we want to be as authentic as we possibly can be. And so we just we go back and we watch those things as much as we can. We talk to the filmmakers that have worked on those characters, whether it's Donald or Jasmine, and we just it's our drive to do the Donald that the fans would expect.
Reed, is there a character that you have that's one of your favorites inside of Disney Infinity 2.0?
It's easily Stitch.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, he's just a cool character on his own, but when you see all the neat upgrades you can give him in our skill tree, it's just incredible what he can do. It makes him really fun to play with.
I'm glad that you brought that up. Let's segue perfectly into attributes and skill trees, because I think that is a really big part of what's separating, how we've upgraded our system from 1.0 to 2.0. So would you like to talk a little bit about that, or Chad, you want to jump in?
Actually, one of you guys is probably better at that than I am.
Okay. I know how to pitch it.
Tell you what, I'll jump in. I think the skill trees are a huge thing. It gives you something to focus on while you're playing the game as far as how to feel progress.
Yeah.
And so as you're looking forward to that next move and the discovery of what that's going to be, and you start getting into this whole idea of, man, should I spend my points here or here as you're going through, it definitely adds a whole new dimension to the game, as far as just a kind of an expectation and a hope almost, for what the play is going to be like. So I think particularly as you play those things the first time, if you haven't seen maybe some of the videos or that kind of stuff, it actually is. It's kind of there's a discovery in finding that.
And you go through that mental where do I want to spend this next point, and you go and explore the tree yourself right when you first start playing with a new character, and you start asking how do I want this character to feel, knowing all the different options that I have.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, these words of discovery and exploration are important, because on Infinity 1, I think it was a lot about exploring the different worlds, whether you're going into Pirates or Incredibles, Toy Story, whatever, and it was about finding new places to go. And maybe that there wasn't as much exploration of what a character could do, and that's what we really wanted to expand on in Infinity 2, is that type of discovery and what your character could do that you weren't maybe you weren't aware that it could do it, and it's that nice discovery and surprise.
And I think the other key thing too, before we move on to the next question, with the new skill trees and attributes is that all of the 1.0 characters also now have skill trees as well. And so that brings relevancy to all those characters inside of the 2.0 version. We want to talk a little bit about the development of that, how those skill trees happen for the 1.0 characters, how we took characters like Sully, for example, and gave him a super move. He's got a super jump now and things like that.
So I think that what we tried to do was go through and try to be true to those characters still, but incorporate them into the system as much as they could. So if you think about one of the play sets like, say, Toy Story in space last year, like the characters, it's not really a combat thing. We put the mode in where you could go into this kind of the space area and fight against the Zerg bots, but when you're out in the world, all you have is a shoulder charge. And so when you think about all of the Marvel kind of combat that we put in, everybody's got like these multi-move combos and then super moves that go on top of that. So what we tried to do was make it so the system, we have our tools and packs. So when you put tools and packs in those guys' hands, it gives them combos, right? And so that's really how we tried to make that work, that you could upgrade their damage or the number of kind of combo moves and those kind of things that they have with those tools and packs in their hands.
Yeah, to make them feel like they can still compete with all the different Marvel superheroes and all the new Disney Infinity 2.0 characters. All right, so our next question is coming from Model Train Man. Nick, I know you're here in the audience. And Nick wants to know, hey buddy, thank you for coming all this way. This is a sweet question. When designing characters, do you ever get stuck and watch the movies over again for inspiration?
Over and over.
Which movie, Jeff, do you think that you've watched the most over and over and over again to get a character just right?
Man, every one of the characters has so much attention put to it. I don't think. Well, let me go back. Maybe because we were working with Johnny Depp and we had to get approvals from him and from Brooke, we had to watch those films so much and to understand how he moves and
the animation.
He was so particular about even the color of the rings. It was crazy how and not just crazy in a crazy way.
You mean crazy good?
I mean crazy good. Yeah, exactly. So every one of these experiences that we go through, like with the Johnny Depp, it shows us just how important these characters are to the creators and to the fans. And so so we go back to the source material and just look at it over and over. And then the other interesting thing about that is that we're working on properties that we haven't seen before. And that's a real challenge because we're going to be coming out with characters way before, or we have to be finished with the characters long before the film comes out. A good example of that is the Frozen characters. We were kind of working in the dark there a little bit, that we were having to get the characters, we call it on the disc, because we had to finish it before it was quite a bit before the film came out. And we had just concept. We weren't able to see any of the movie really, and there were storyboards for us to watch, and so we were it was a shot in the dark trying to get the characters right, and we were so happy when we, even little things, John Diesta was the designer on that. We were laughing and giving each other high fives when we saw the film for the first time and saw her, and we saw we saw Elsa put her foot down on the lake, and it created that pattern, and that was just what we had created in our base. And that we didn't know that happened in the film. It was cool when that happened, but that's a real challenge when we're working on characters that don't exist yet.
Actually,
and I think like Guardians of the Galaxy is another perfect example where we would get shots of the daily footage, but it's all on green screen, and so you've got Peter Quill talking to like a Muppet of Groot, right? And just green. And so like we have no idea what the world looks like. Well, you do because you've got concept images, but how it's actually going to take shape in all of those special effects. When we saw the film for the first time, we're just blown away by all the visuals. So it's really cool, like when your stuff matches up really well.
Yeah, we saw the film Guardians. I saw the film with everybody else after we were done. So that was a real challenge, and it was satisfying to see that we were pretty close. So it was fun.
Now, I remember a fun trip with both of you guys to New Mexico
Oh yeah.
to go visit the set of Lone Ranger. And running into Mr. Depp on set for the first time. There's paparazzi miles and miles and miles away with like super zoom lens photos peeking through a fence.
And by miles and miles, he means about like 600 yards, I think.
Yeah, well, it's but I remember when he came in, and we were like, everyone was moving us out of the way because we didn't expect to see him. We were just going to be on set, and then all of a sudden someone came in. We were pushed to the side, and everyone's like, "What's going on?" And then someone walked in, with almost, it was like a towel on their head, and then there was, this unveil of Johnny for the first time with the crow, and we're all like,
well, and he was the old version of Johnny. Or of Tonto.
Yeah.
So it was.
And the reason that they would wrap the towel around his head is because these guys have got these massive lenses. They were
600 yards away.
Like 600 yards away. they were trying to get a glimpse of what the makeup looked like, and so the paparazzi knew that that's what was happening on set, and so they had to like wind him up that way. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. So let's go back though to the original question, and Chad, maybe you would like to talk a little bit about, especially with all the work that you do inside of the Toy Box mode. Is there any Disney movies that you've gone and watched over and over and over again?
Yeah, the artists. I mean, Reed, they are constantly watching. I mean, I've seen them. They'll go through frame by frame, and they'll watch something like How is Agrabah constructed. You could probably talk about that a little bit.
Well, we know we have a lot of huge Disney fans that are going to play the game, and they're going to want to see it be accurate within reason. And the truth is, we are super huge Disney geeks too, so we really want to do our best in bringing that into the game. So yes, we do scrub through the movies frame by frame, finding that perfect angle of that one object that's just going to be maybe a set piece or a little bit of population in your toy box
Or something in an interior, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you guys look at it all the time just to make sure it's perfect. What about with Marvel? I mean, because obviously that same process has to happen with Marvel. So maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the inspiration that you guys looked at for Marvel, whether it was comics or films or anything in particular.
We pulled in from both whenever we could. There's a lot of little, they're great little Marvel knickknacks and items and things that you can remember from, like every one of these heroes has a long storied past, and we did whatever we could. We consulted the smartest Marvel people in our company to come help us find some of these items that people might really love to see in the game, and then we sought out whatever imagery we could to get it just right so that the real fans could really appreciate them.
Yeah, and it was fun too because not only was it our own internal Marvel super geeks, but it was also fun to work with people like Joe Quesada and Brian Michael Bendis and other people at Marvel that helped, lend authenticity to everything that we were making. So it's very, very cool. Any other films, either obscure or contemporary, that we looked at for inspiration? Or
I think the cartoon series actually was for Spider-Man was one of the biggest things that we did, because that's really kind of in the same universe. There's been so many different versions of Spider-Man over the course of the years in the different comics. That one worked out really well for us because we wanted to make 5 IGPs. Interactive game pieces. So that's one of those. I need to throw a dollar in the jargon jar, I guess. And so we knew we needed a lot. And if you go to the films, there weren't as many hero characters in the films. It's generally just Spider-Man. And so we wanted to go into one of the different kind of more worlds to where he does have kind of superheroic friends that kind of help out. So it's like, that's where Nova and those guys come from in there.
I think another one to point out is Gus the Mule, like Bob Lowe, who's
there it is.
I think he watched it probably 35 times, and he would actually, we got the football, and he wanted to make sure the stitching was in the right spot. His helmet was correct, and the animation when he kicked the ball was perfect. So there's a lot of love that went into that.
So Chad, people that are watching right now on Twitch and in the audience might not know exactly what you're talking about. So would you like to
is
break
this going to be a world exclusive?
This is a world exclusive from Chad Liddell. Can you confirm
Gus
some
the Mule
content?
is a playable character. No, I'm just kidding. No,
People just got really excited and then let down.
No, he's one of the new mounts, and he actually kicks a football which is a beautiful thing for those of us who grew up a long, long time ago and nobody else will know about. But it was fun for us.
I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, like last year with Condor Man, right?
Yeah.
I know that there were a lot of, to include myself, people are passionate about Condor Man.
We wanted Condor Man as a playable character so bad, but we got his wings.
And the funny one there too is our legal department, when we went to go and clear the music, our legal department said, we actually don't know if you can put the music into the game. And we're like, we're Disney and we own Condor Man, we should be able to do that. And it's like, but no one was thinking about the interactive rights for Condor Man in 1979. John. Well, can't we figure that out? And I'm glad we did. So, all right, moving on to the next question. And this is a very interesting one in terms of insight into game development. Do you, Erdad3 wants to know, do you have any kind of filter or approval procedure for each Marvel, Disney figure, Power Disc, and building that you want to include in the game, or do you have complete freedom to do what you want?
Jeff's getting twitches over that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as am I.
Honestly, there's days where it feels like there's a filter or an approval, but honestly, I look at it more as a responsibility to get it right. That these characters mean a lot to me and to a lot of fans, and so it's critical that we do the right things to make that character who he or she is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And so we found that the best way to do that is go back to the source, to go back to the filmmaker or the creator of that character and make them happy. And if we're making them happy, we've always found that we're making the fans happy. So, yeah, I don't think I look at it too much as...
Actually, I think it's one of the coolest parts of the job because early on, when you first start off going through those, it's like as we start working with Marvel or anybody, whether it be Pixar or Disney, Walt Disney Animation Studios, the live action guys, you have to make a relationship there at first that they understand that you actually care about doing the right thing by those characters. And as soon as you do, like early on, it feels like it's the hard part because you're going through all the intermediaries, and then as they build up a trust, you get to go directly to them. Mm-hmm. And that's what's actually really fun because as soon as you get to that point to where it's the person who's working on that asset going directly to the creator of that on their team, that stuff's awesome because then you start understanding what's really going on in their head and what they were thinking while they were creating it, and then therefore what's important to them about it. And as soon as you get to that level, it's actually really fun.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh,
I was just going to say, and going back to that idea of watching the film over and over again, you want to go to that creator of that character knowing that character so they have trust in you and confidence from the outset. So you really do your homework before you ever even meet that filmmaker.
They actually dress up as the characters whenever they talk to them.
That's why you bring me along. But I think that's, like John had mentioned, it's one of the most interesting parts of the job is getting to go and interact with the Jerry Bruckheimers and the Tim Burtons and John Lasseter and all the guys at Pixar.
Like one of the kind of cooler stories for me was when we first started working on Toy Story 3 and we were doing Buzz Lightyear. We had a bunch of new animations and there was no footage of him doing the types of things we had him doing in the game. And one of the animators, came in and he started telling us, he's like, no, Buzz doesn't animate like that because and he went through and it's just something we'd never noticed was every single one of his animations is asymmetric. Like normally when people run, it's, there's like a symmetrical motion where your right arm and your left foot and those kind of things. Buzz Lightyear never animates symmetrically, ever. And so their whole thing is he doesn't do that. So when you're making up new stuff, do it that way, because he's always like akimbo, when he runs, that kind of stuff. It was pretty cool understanding how they do what they do and how they judge it.
Yeah, and I think that, part of, like Jeff had mentioned, it's, one person that we had a lot of fun working with 2.0 is Alex Hirsch and the guys from the Gravity Falls team. Were absolutely amazing. And it's fun because it's changed from 1.0 to 2.0 in that now we have those filmmakers and those amazing storytellers, whether it's from Disney Channel or from the films, coming to us and talking about what type of integration their property should have inside of Infinity. And so that's something that we just have a blast. And then of course peeking into the Disney vault, right?
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's Gus the Mule or it's Condor Man or it's the talking to the parks about the Main Street Electrical Parade float and all those kinds of things. Do you have any kind of fun working with Disney corporate brand, kind of looking. I mean, I remember, for example, I came home one night late, and my wife was mad that I had missed dinner, and she said, well, why are you here late? And I said, well, I unfortunately stayed late on the phone. I had an argument about Dumbo inside of the game, and whether Dumbo should be represented as a vehicle or as the character himself. And she's like, is your job really arguing about Dumbo? But it's like, the fact of the matter is it is, right? I mean, part of it.
Well, yeah, you go back to like the discussions we had about when we did Sorcerer Mickey, which is incorrect, by the way. It's
Mickey as the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Mickey, as the Sorcerer's Apprentice. We always shorthand it, and Brand was when we had the discussion with the people that are in charge of Mickey Mouse, it was very important to them that was Mickey Mouse playing a role in a film when he was Sorcerer, and they just want to make those distinctions that it's clear which Mickey you're dealing with and what personality he's portraying in that role.
My favorite one was when we went to lunch with Alyssa.
Yeah.
She's in corporate brand, and we had this philosophical discussion about the difference between Raja, who maybe Jasmine could ride as a mount, and Simba, who, because he speaks, there's no way you could do that. And so we're going back and forth, and so we're like a lunch kind of philosophically, what is the difference between these two characters?
Right.
And so it was fun.
And then there's that famous scene. I think it was like a year later. Right? It was the Toy Story short where they were on vacation and Ken jumps on.
The unicorn. Yep.
and he goes, "Giddy up!" And he goes, "No." Right after Woody had just jumped on Bullseye to do the exact same thing.
So it's like Buttercup, right?
Yeah, Buttercup. That's what I was thinking of. Okay, great. So, Allison, can we take a question from the live stream?
Yes. Test, test.
There
Okay,
it is.
we're on. All right, so you guys have been talking a lot about character creation, and at Noah Idea Films on Twitter wants to know, how long is the process of character idea to actual working character in game?
So it depends, per character. So like Spider-Man, because he took so long. Actually, it was a little bit more difficult, I think, to find the aesthetic for the toy design of him as well. I would say on that one, the rough version probably happens in about a month to 2 months. But the real version that everybody sees by the time we're done is probably something like 6 months is probably standard. Now, some characters are less than that, but they generally don't go too much longer than 6 months. I mean, but you might want to talk about the physical.
Yeah, you go to the interesting thing about that is I've been making games for like 20 years. And only worrying about the game side of it, this virtual character, and starting with Infinity One, obviously having to work to be concerned with an IGP, with creating this figurine that
$2.
Yep.
What's that?
It's $2 in the jargon jar.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So if you hear us say IGP, that's what we internally call an interactive game piece, because that's what an Infinity figure is.
Yes.
So.
But that was a whole new challenge that takes a considerable amount of time to get that right. And there's a lot of, first of all, there's the design of that character. And this brings up another real challenge, is that, when we were doing the Bolts and the Toy Story 3 and the Cars 2, all those type of films, and we were just trying to copy the character, just make that as authentic and as real as possible. That's actually pretty easy, because you have your target. You look at the film version of it and you say, it's not close enough yet, you just keep on going. But when you're going to the filmmaker and you're taking their favorite character and you're going to say, I want to make him that way, but I want to make him supposed to be, or her, but I want to make him different, then all of a sudden it's a whole new challenge. And each filmmaker has their own criteria of what they care about. And so there's a lot of time that goes into just discovering the aesthetic of that character, and then to go to the engineering of that, to the factories and those type of things. It's added a whole nother degree of difficulty, I guess, to creating these characters. So
I
it's-
remember when we modified Venom. I mean, Venom was one of the characters that took us a very long time to get to what he turned out to as a figure. You want to talk a little bit about what Venom looked like before, and then how he evolved into the the Hulk-like Venom that we have now?
Yeah, it's very complex because we have a lot of constraints being a game, and especially a large game like Infinity is, where all these characters have to be able to live in the toy box. So we have to start sharing rigs, and rigs are the bone structure that goes inside of a character that allows the animator to move that character, and so we started out with a thinner Venom, and but he ended up being somewhere between a Captain America and what Hulk is, and we had these discussions about, and that wasn't good for us because we needed to find one where he just belonged in that rig group, and so we worked a lot with Marvel just to define exactly where he ought to belong, and we decided together, let's go big, let's make him let's make him Hulk-like, and which in the end I'm really excited. He's one of my favorite characters, and then beyond that we have the challenges of the fact that. And this is a geeky collector's figure thing, but it's a real challenge to get a paint hit going completely around a character and have them all line up and that type of thing. And so there's a lot of challenges to make all that work on Venom.
I think you brought up something really interesting that we should talk about that I think a lot of people glance over, and is something that makes Infinity pretty powerful, especially the toy box mode, and that is the fact that all these characters do work together inside of the toy box. Everything from a ledge hang to using all the different types of weapons that we have and vehicles that we have. You guys maybe want to talk a little bit about that and some of the challenges of that, because from a consumer standpoint, at first glance, you actually don't truly understand the complexity that goes into the design of that. But I'm sure people would love to hear about that. So you guys maybe want to, Chad, you want to take a stab?
Yeah, so I think there's several things there. I think, well, first off, we get the characters and we get to discover what those moves are, and then a lot of the times we alter the world and how everything fits together so that it matches that. But we always stick to certain metrics of things, like we know that everybody can double jump 4 meters. And we know that if you have a really tall building, we know that we want all of the characters that can wall crawl to be able to wall crawl on that. So we do a lot of work. James actually does a ton of work on that sort of stuff. And then, one of the things that it just blows my mind that I'm really impressed at with seeing these characters is how well balanced they are. Like Merida is my favorite character, and she feels as good and as powerful in the toy box as any of the other characters do. So they've done an amazing job with that.
James, you want to talk a little bit about implementing those characters in the toy box and what that's like?
Well, I think, Chad covered it really well. There's the teams involved in that. By the time we get it, they've already done a lot of this, play them with each other, try to make them feel right. By the time we get to play with them in our world, they're familiar with how our metrics are going to match. And so there is a lot of interchange. There's a lot of those teams playing inside our world, trying the different characters with each other. It always gets interesting if you take, say, Wall Crawl and the different characters that do it, they actually do it fairly differently. So you still get this good feeling. Stitch still feels like Stitch. He doesn't necessarily, he doesn't feel like Spider-Man when you're crawling on a wall, and yet there's, feels right.
Under the hood,
Yeah.
It's still the same.
Yeah.
I just want to hit all the different combinations.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
like
what-
everybody.
that's kinda where I wanted to go,
Everybody can pick each other up,
yeah,
and
the
they can interact with
interoperability.
so many things. There's this huge spreadsheet that we keep. It's like monster, and so there's every character has their kind of their name is a column, and then everything that they can do is a row, and it's. So every single one of those cells, this thing is thousands of cells.
Because remember, it's power discs,
Because they have to,
tools,
yeah,
it's packs.
they each have to work with every single one of those things. And so when the testers go through to do this, it's literally they go through and check every power and every other combination. So there's some of those things, that at the end of the day that slip through. There's some funny bugs, honestly. That
Yeah.
stuff that comes out we had one where the Lone Ranger.
It was Crystal. This is yesterday.
Yeah, it's like
this is yesterday, everyone.
the Crystal Lone Ranger. When he would fire his pistol, a boot would drop out of it.
Like that Donald would throw. So everyone was like, "How is this happening?" Exactly.
And so there's one of those cells was wrong. in
Yeah,
that
I think
spreadsheet.
that's fun. I mean, and then it's another kind of hats off to character mechanics team, because think about it. You have a character like Spider-Man, and then you have to accommodate for, well, what happens when Spider-Man puts Buzz Lightyear's jetpack on? Okay, you should be able to do that. And then when Spider-Man is flying with Buzz Lightyear's jetpack, what happens to all of his web swinging mechanics? Do those go away? Or do we make it so he can shoot from his hand? Or now what happens if someone puts a weapon into Spider-Man's hand? And does that even make sense for Spider-Man to be able to do? And those are the types of things that the team is going through. And when you look at the 60 power discs from the first version of the game, the 80 new power discs from the second version of the game, plus all the individual virtual toys that you unlock from the play sets, as well as progress just inside of the toy box, you begin to understand just how daunting this is to make all these characters work. And as a platform that lives on over and over and over, the idea that all characters from 1.0 would work with 2.0. And so as the team is brainstorming some of the new virtual toys that they want to add to the game, it becomes, well, how is a character like Thor going to be able to interact with this versus a character like Stitch? So there's quite a lot of interesting examples there that I think is fun to talk about. All right, so next question here is from Turner Bros, who wants to know, with hundreds of potential ideas that could be pulled from Disney films and theme park attractions, what's the process for selecting the vehicles and items that appear on Power Discs? Anyone?
I'll start. So
Reed, John?
So like everybody is a fan inside
Yeah.
the company, and so you end up there's a big whiteboard
Yeah.
where people start off
Sixth
just-
floor conference room.
Yeah, start writing down like what they want, and then it really becomes like, so everybody goes to bat. I mean, it's kind of one of the funnest things because it's like everybody has a favorite
What'd you
thing.
say, Chad?
It looks just like the forums. I mean, what we do, it's like the exact same kinds of conversations that happen in the forums about what people want to see.
And so, just like you love Captain EO and have been going to bat for
I have been,
for that.
yes.
We're like everybody has like a favorite thing that's kind. And
What's
some
your
of them,
favorite thing, John Blackburn?
So mine's like easy because it's already in the game. It was The Incredibles. So
Okay, but there was another one that is slightly embarrassing, the character that you wanted to appear into the game.
I don't know what you're talking about, John.
Yeah, I remember as we were arguing, and this is the same process with characters too. As we were arguing about characters, you were like, "I want to put Piglet in the game. And Piglet is going to be the strongest character in the entire game." And then everyone was like, "Okay, we know that you're the boss, but you're nuts." And then Captain EO, right? Like the whole thing.
So my whole thing was like, we're not done until Piglet's flying around with a jetpack and a blaster in his hand.
Yeah, that's fun. Reed, Chad, are there any power discs in particular that you guys champion to get into the game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, everyone on a Toy Box team sort of finds their favorites and really roots for them and tries to make them happen. And it's usually because that person will probably get to work on them. And
Right.
nothing is more fun than being able to take your favorite thing and transition it into the game in the best way possible. It's just really exciting. For me, it was things like Tron and Gravity Falls were some of my favorites. But it just gets really exciting when you're going to be the person that gets to bring that to life in the game.
And so then there's another whole part of this that's the Skunk Works.
I was
side.
just going to say, Rita's being deceptive. That he say they just root for it because they make it.
So sometimes it's like the Recognizer from Tron.
Yep.
It wasn't on a list. We were like, man, we don't know that we'll be able to do it, and they made it and put it in.
And that was all. That was. They made it and put it. That was overtime.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That
Reed
was-
started all of this by, he made Scrooge's Money Bin on his own time you were probably working like 80 hours a week, and he somehow found a way to make that and put it in.
Yeah, it became kind of funny for me to go for approvals because usually you go to the creator with the idea. You ask permission. Can we do this this character or this set piece? And I got to the point where I was taking finished products and saying, can we do this?
Which is always a no-no. Right?
I know.
Well, I wouldn't want to tell you no, but you already showed up with it already done.
Yeah, Jeff would come into the area and they'd show all the stuff they're doing, and I could just see Jeff's, the beads of sweat start to form. It was a lot of fun though. It took over the whole, all of the artists, we had animators, everybody contributing to that Skunkworks, and I think a lot of the real core Disney pieces that we have in the game are because of that.
What are you most proud of, Chad?
Probably Condor Man's wings. Yeah, no, of the power discs, I like the obscure. I want some like Darby O'Gill and the little people kind of stuff. I think you'll know I got my way if in the future game we have a whole bunch of that stuff.
Yeah, Reed. So I know that as the ambassador of Scrooge's Money Bin, last year a lot of people wanted to actually dive into it. Can you give us any insight into how Scrooge's Money Bin may have evolved for 2.0?
Well, they absolutely can now. We always wanted to put a little bit more love into it, but like Chad was saying, it was all overtime stuff just to be able to get those things in. Well, we got a little bit more time for this next go round, and we decided, hey, let's make it a little bit nicer. So we have gone back and actually adjusted some of the old favorites that you may have played with before, and they've gotten a little bit better. Including Scrooge's Money Bin, which you can now dive into the money and wade around in with coins flying everywhere.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, the community thanks you. I'm glad I don't have to answer that question on Twitter anymore.
Just add a little bit, we're talking about how personal this is, but the truth of it is, if you pull back the curtain, it all does start with the community. Daily, I get emails from John where he's very in touch with what the community is asking for, and he's constantly sending me tweets of what you are tweeting or what you're emailing or putting on the forums, and daily I'm getting these things of what we ought to include in our list. And so that is what becomes that thing that's on the whiteboard. It starts with you, and then we start fighting within ourselves of which ones go to the top. But it's entirely fed by the community.
Yeah, so all of you people that tweeted about Gus the Mule, thank you.
I think that one was a personal one.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a great question. One of my favorites. What was the inspiration for the overall vehicle design and handling system? Was it hard to integrate the systems from Toy Story 3 and Cars 2? And then I'll tack on to the end of this question. And what have you done to fix the helicopter controls? John Blackburn, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll start on this. So it wasn't really that difficult to integrate most of the vehicle stuff. So because the game engine that we have evolves every game that we do. So we've been using Octane for like 10 years right now, and so we had both.
Octane is our game engine.
Octane's a game engine,
and Powers Infinity.
And so all the tools to like make a vehicle or those kind of things are already in there for us, and so the physics driving model that really got added and honed down in Cars 2. We already had all the character kind of moveset stuff from a lot of the different. We've done a lot of action platformers over the course of the years, and so. What we then did, we started off with, hey, let's go ahead and bring those vehicle mechanics in.
Yeah.
Now, then, so that's kind of, so it wasn't that difficult. It's still a big job to make sure that like Lightning McQueen can go every place that he needs to be able to go. There's a lot of design work that has to happen. And so at the design level, I'd say it's much more difficult to make sure that if I put down Lightning any place versus I put down, Buzz Lightyear any place, that the game's going to work properly. So that's what we had to kind of deal with there. But then I think particularly the point that you want to kind of rib me on is the vehicle controls themselves, and as we added flight. And so when we added flight, we have a very standard, kind of mechanic for how the vehicles drive, and you've got gas and brake. And we felt like, we had done a lot of different tests to see how that should work. And kind of at the end of Infinity 1, we weren't really happy with where the controls were, and we put in a new control scheme to unify them and say, well, okay, everybody will understand that they all work the same way. And John, to say that he had strong feelings about this might be a little bit of an understatement.
I can be passionate sometimes about things.
And so in interviews, he would, particularly whenever he was on camera, he would be like, and the helicopter controls, and so that we would like watch these videos and see him be angry with us on TV.
And then, and then I came back and I remember Mike Snow, who had worked on those helicopter controls, hit me so hard for doing that I had a bruise for weeks on my arm. But what's the good news?
So the good news is we went through, we listened to John.
And you guys.
We listened to,
And there were a lot
we
of
listened to
tweets on
this
that.
part of our community
All from Jade.
and went from there. And so, no, I think it's a much more intuitive feel this time around. So
I got everyone to clap. Thanks. That's great. You know, you brought up something I think that's really interesting that is another kind of behind the scenes game dev thing that James, I'd like you to talk a little bit about. You know, when we talk about Octane being the engine that powers Infinity, of course, it's not just been Infinity that Octane has powered, right? There's been games not only created by Avalanche, but by other studios within Disney Interactive that has used Octane. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what the studio's philosophy is in terms of developing, you know, layers of the engine, the system, whether it's streaming or whether it's, you know, the combat platforming? John touched on it a little bit. Maybe you can go a little bit more in depth of what it's been like over the course of the past decade as this engine has evolved.
Well, it gets very interesting because we all have, as we finish up a project or as someone else is using the engine, we all have our gripes. This didn't feel right, that didn't work right, this is very difficult to either, you know, to maybe work with in a manner that's going to work, you know, for a different property, right? And so as we're trying to, you know, grow the engine, we really try to focus on the different layers. This layer here, this is specific to this game. And then maybe one step down, you have functionality that is going to work across multiple games that can be accessed from kind of the higher layer. And so it's, I mean, without going into too much detail, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how can we make this functionality open enough that no matter which thing we're doing with it, it's accessible, it's solid, it's, you know, it just works for the various platforms.
I think
I'm going to jump in here because I think what James kind of missed, like an overall philosophy. Our engine is very flexible.
Yes.
We have done a lot of different things with the engine, and we've added a lot of different pieces over the course of time. That's actually what allowed us to do the toy box.
Yeah.
In general. And so that's one of the things like I'm most proud of is that it's when we had this kind of philosophy game design wise of if the player said, hey, can I do this? We wanted the answer to be yes. Like, you know, can I get in this car? Yes. Can I pick the car up and throw it? Yes. There was all these different types of things that as you interact with the world, we wanted to allow you to do. And over the course of the years, that flexibility has allowed for that. And so that's, I think, the biggest thing that's, you know, just I would say.
Yeah, I remember, you know, the engine's big, you know, kind of the big coming out party was Toy Story 3's Toy Box mode.
Yeah.
And, you know, streaming was integrated into the engine at that point.
Customization. That's another big-
And then that, you know, the Octane engine then would go on to power Cars 2. And that's when the racing system inside of the engine got a complete overhaul. And then we were able to leverage the streaming and the customization plus the racing and then evolve that even more to create then, you know, what has become now the Toy Box and has since evolved from there. Okay, next question here. Allison, would you like to get a question?
Yes,
from the,
let's take one from the Twitch chat.
Okay.
So we have the Disney Fanatic 22 asked, what gave you the idea for costume discs and were they difficult to implement into the game?
I know that costume discs came right from the guys at Marvel initially. I mean, we had talked about how it would be fun to do like, you know, different versions of different characters. And we might do that one day, but the Marvel guys had come to us and said, hey, there are so many different variants of these characters and their character costumes that it would be a total shame if you guys didn't integrate them into the game. Do you have any other insight into that besides?
Yeah, it was there was a real desire from Marvel and obviously from the fans of Marvel to have all these different costumes. And we wanted to create new new figures.
Everyone knows what an IGP is now. We're in the safe zone.
You know, because we love creating those figures, but we just don't have the ability to create that many. And so we were looking for another avenue to express that. And the Power Disc was a great place for us to put costumes.
Yeah, and I'd say also that the costume changes not only apply to Marvel characters, but we've also made them work with the Disney characters, both old and new. I know some
But
of you
only
guys...
where that makes sense. I think it's
Only where it makes... Yeah, it doesn't, not every character.
Right.
I know that some of the guys this morning during setup actually got to go around. We have all 40 of the Disney-themed discs that are here. They got to see some of the costume changes for the Disney characters. One that we're really excited about is the Santa Claus suit for Jack Skellington, which is on a Power. There we go. All right. So one person enjoys it. But that'll be a real fun one, and there'll be for other legacy characters and new characters as well. We've got a question here from Tanner B, which is another really great one for those of you that are kind of in the weeds from a game design perspective. What kind of challenges does water bring at the design and programming level? Are there any plans to include water or water elements in the upcoming updates? I mean, this is something everyone keeps asking. Where is swimming?
Where's my water?
That is another game. Also a great game available right now on iOS. But let's talk a little bit about swimming mechanics and integrating those type of mechanics.
So I mean, when we go out and look at the mechanics, it's largely it's which properties we're going to go. So we actually thought about it quite a bit on Pirates, because we were like, man, we've got
Makes
Pirates,
sense.
it totally makes sense.
I remember this argument.
Yeah.
The drowning mechanic is how it was.
You have to walk off the plank, right? No, so the thought behind it was we wanted to be able to, from a game design standpoint, it's important to actually put up easy boundaries that people understand. Mm-hmm. And so water became that for us. And that's the primary boundary that we have around the world, because, we can't go make an infinite amount of content, for each one of these things. So, so that's, we use the word around here sometimes. So the thing that we try to do is come up with easy things that players understand and recognize. Water is that right now for us, but it's also now a restriction. And so if you look at some of the fan favorites that have come back on this, it's like Ariel is actually like really high on the list of asks, and Dory and Nemo, it comes in. And so we've definitely thought a lot about it. We know how we will handle it if we do that, but it's probably going to be that it would probably come in as a play set, I would guess, if that's going to happen.
So I was gonna key in on something they said in the beginning to tease the answer, which is when swimming does come into the game, it will be integrated perhaps as a play set, but when it makes sense.
Yep.
When something very exciting that potentially is about water may be coming out. That's a good answer. Okay, I'm getting the 5-minute sign. All right, let me see here. My eyes. Turner Bros got another good question. As a child of the 90s, I appreciate the nods to films and characters that I grew up watching in Disney Infinity 1.0. But are there plans to add more content, figures, Power Discs, etc., that appeals to a large segment of the older fans of the game, the older Disney fans of the game?
I think it's funny that you think a
child of the
child of the 90s is older.
Old, yeah.
Well, being a child of the 70s, all those decades, whatever makes you old, we want to have that part of Disney in the game.
So the interesting thing is, a child of the 90s, my kids were growing up in the 90s, and I was going to movies with all of them. And so I was a parent of the 90s, I guess, is one of the huge things for me. And so that's all, the 90s specifically, absolutely. I think there's a lot of guys at the company who really kind of grew up at the same time, or were Disney was, it was a heyday of all the the animation
the
studios.
Disney afternoon stuff. We hear you very loud and clear. Certainly on the latest poll that we did, Darkwing Duck is one of the most popular characters. So, yep.
We hear
noted.
We hear gargoyles a lot.
You hear gargoyles a lot as well. Another fun kind of question that actually comes right into this is, do you guys have any plans to add any other Disney, Marvel, or Pixar figures? Or even, so the examples here are like Indiana Jones, Grim Fandango, Day of the Tentacle, Monkey Island, things like that, which are all now part of LucasArts, which is all part of the Disney family now. So, any plans? Anything you want to confirm?
I'm not going to confirm anything. We know Tim Schafer.
Yeah.
He's kind of been in the industry for a while, and so Tim did a lot of the games back at LucasArts in the day. It would be awesome to work with him on that. So I think that it would be a real treat to be able to do that. Indiana Jones. I mean, as soon as when Marvel was acquired, and then when Lucas was acquired, we're sitting here not even knowing if we can things or not. We're just like, man, I hope we get to use Marvel.
Right.
And so there's this excitement for us. And so as some of those kind of conversations go down, I mean, some of those things are like there's individual rights on some of that kind of stuff. And so, but we do talk about it.
Yeah, it would be really great.
Would anybody want an Indiana Jones playset out of curiosity? Apparently
Okay.
there's a market there.
Okay, we've got. We're going to do one more question from here, and then one more question from the community. So, Finn Warrior, you wanted to know. This is a great one too. Are you planning on having a music creation tool in 2.0? For example, in the style of Mario Paint Music Creator.
No.
Okay. Not inside of 2.0.
2.0
But
is
there's a
done.
story here, John.
Yeah, there is. So
Chad.
Yeah, from the Toy Box team, that was something we've wanted. We prototyped it early. We just didn't have quite enough time to be able to complete it, but it is something that's definitely on our radar.
Yeah, I think that, again, the more that you guys want to see those types of features, I mean, even at dinner last night when guys were bringing up, like the twins from Spain brought up, it'd be so nice if we had more than 120 characters to describe our toy boxes. And our CTO, Rob Nelson, was like, yeah, I think I can do that.
when he says you mean ASCII characters in a text box, right?
Okay, yes.
It's not a character.
No, yes, more than 120 ASCII character texts in a text box. Correct, the technical term. So even things like that, though, like the more and more you guys let us know those types of things. And again, you guys have a seat at the table here, so let us know, and we will integrate those fixes into the game or new features in the game.
But what I'll say on the music stuff is it is a good idea as we're moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will add that the sound effects toy that is in 2.0 has a ton of sounds. It's not like 8 beeps and variants of beeps like it was before. And I'm sure some very talented musician could probably figure out a way to make some really cool music with it.
Is that a hint?
Allison,
Okay.
one more question from the community.
So for this one, we want to hear from everybody on the panel.
Okay.
Magenta Kitten on Twitter says, what is each member of the panel's personal favorite Disney Infinity figure?
Who's starting?
Start over there. I'm going to think about this one.
I'm going to have to, again, go with Stitch. I know I kind of answered this a little bit earlier, but it's just an incredible little figure, and it captures all of his personality right there, his mischievous destruction and his cuteness all in one little tiny figure. It's awesome.
I love Merida, and it's not just because I wish I had her hair. I'd look good. No, but her combat capabilities make me smile. She's very powerful.
I'm gonna go with 2. So I love The Incredibles. It's my favorite Disney film, and so Dash he's the one I always play with because he's really quick to get around. But in Infinity 2, it's Iron Man. I mean, he's awesome. I mean, it is just so much fun. He's overpowered in every way.
So I'm going to say 2 answers. From the Marvel side of the family, I love Venom, especially when he's fully leveled up. He's as strong as Hulk, plus he has web swinging, so that's totally awesome. And then from the Disney side, it is, I'll give a hint, it is, because my Disney answers always change as we are unveiling new characters. But this particular one is a female Disney character that we have not yet announced. So that will be my favorite 2.0 Disney character.
I have different favorites. So if you're talking just the art of it, and so if you're talking just the figure, I think my favorite is probably Rapunzel. I think she's really captures her personality. I love that she looks good from every angle. And then in game, I'd have to say probably Iron Man. He has a lot going for him.
Mr. Rowe?
So, again, I'll also go with 2. And I have to agree with Reed on Stitch. I like Stitch, especially the wall crawl. It's very bug-like. It feels good. It's very true to character. So I enjoy it. I think that's a lot of fun. I'm a Spider-Man fan, too. Right?
Oh.
I mean, and it feels good in the game. Swings well, climbs well, crawls well. I don't know.
Spider-Man is amazing in the toy box. You can boogie. You can get around really quick with him.
Yeah, you can do a lot. So those are my favorites.
It's great. Well, we want to thank all of our panelists for being here. Now we're actually going to transition over to our Toy Box community team. So thank you guys for being a part of this. Thanks for everyone for listening. Yeah.